T asks, do cosplayers usually want to be who they cosplay? Sometimes. That's a funny one. You know, I noticed that I can't dress up as villains for the most part. I didn't realize that I had a problem dressing up as villains until I realized I had never dressed up as a villain. Okay, I played Kylo Ren, but he's a troubled villain. I sort of understand Kylo, I think, you know, like we do. I love the Immortan Joe costume from Fury Road, but I couldn't possibly wear it. I would not. There's nothing I want out of that character physically. However, dressing up as Indiana Jones, I totally want to be Indiana Jones. 100%. I have wanted to be Indiana Jones since I learned of Indiana Jones when I was 15 years old. Yeah, 82, right? 82. So sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes, I mean, the largest thing is that it is aspirational. It gives you that excuse to try on that power armor and feel that power and see that silhouette. Yeah, I mean, but also, like a lot of times you don't know until you finish the costume and you look at a picture of it. You move towards it. I mean, I move towards the costumes that I move towards just because I notice that I can't stop thinking about this or that costume. So I move towards it. But it's not like I think, wow, I really like Mandalorian and I'd like to be Mandalorian, so let me put on a Mandalorian costume and then I can be him. It's more like, wow, that Beskar armor, man, it has a swagger. I'd like some of that swagger. Yeah, let me try and assemble it and see who makes what and see if I can get the experience that I'm looking for. More research, more research, more research. Well, the answer is yes, let's keep on moving. And this is the central thing about cosplay that I want to, like, it's a journey of self-discovery like every other endeavor that involves your point of view and your time. Because your biggest enemy in achieving excellence is always going to be yourself. And so to get good at anything or to achieve a level of experience that maybe more than you think you can do or is a new experience that you haven't tried before, those are things that as you move towards them, as you move towards the thing you can't stop thinking about, you're learning about yourself. You're like, I have pieces I made 25, 30 years ago that are still teaching me about my own aesthetics just by being there. And there's something really unique when you make something that's really beautiful to you. When I make something that is really beautiful to me, even sometimes 20, 30, and in some cases of mine, 35 years later, that piece seems like a mystery. Like I can't remember knowing what I knew to get it across the line back then. But I learned something about myself in the doing of it, and that's what's extant in the piece. Of all the cosplays, Andy Butler wants to know, that you've done, which one required the most character study and acting? I would say Jack Sparrow, except I don't think my Jack Sparrow was great. So I don't think I did enough study and performance work on my Jack Sparrow costume when I wore it at San Diego Comic-Con. However, I did do the Joker from The Dark Knight from the bank heist, which is in a blue suit with a blue duffel bag and the clown mask. And I worked really hard on the specific head leading shuffle that Heath Ledger did with his Dark Knight Joker. And my wife, who's a terrific performer in her own right, we've taken many improv classes together over the years. She gave me a lot of guidance. I did a lot of workshopping of that performance with her. And most cosplayers that I know, they find someone to workshop their cosplay performances with. That one was, I scared children with that Joker costume. I totally remember a kid being like, "Mommy, I don't like my costume." And I was like, yeah. I don't like scaring kids, but I thought that I had was pretty cool. Oh, Michael Elwell says, in your cosplay over the years, what is the one thing you learned that you wished you had known earlier? How welcoming the community is. Seriously. My first cosplay, I think, is 2007, 2008, one of those two. And I had known about San Diego Comic-Con for at least a decade before that. And I had known about cosplay for about that long. Even though the name cosplay, I can't remember when that shows up in culture, but I was amazed by the community that I found. And when I went from San Diego Comic-Con to Dragon Con, that was really the education in the cosmology of cosplay, because if each con is like a planet where cosplay happens, Dragon Con is a gas giant. It's a huge planet. The cosplay there is deep and strong and goes all night long. But yeah, I didn't go to a con I didn't go to a con until 2007. I would have gone 10 years earlier if I had known how much fun it was. Seriously. Yeah. RPG Gamer Guy says, I've been trying to make a dark priest costume, but I can't seem to make the tail of the cloak stiff enough so that it can stick out. How do I go about doing this? There are several ways you could go about doing this. You could take some Warbler and heat it up and apply fabric to it after it is in the shape that you want. But there's also a type of hat making thermal mesh called buckram. It probably has other names. If you know other names or specific product names for buckram, please put them in the comments. I learned about it on Beach Blanket Babylon. If anyone was an avid watcher of Project Runway over many seasons, you probably remember the incredible Chris Marsh, who made the dress out of safety pins and did huge wigs. He was the wig master at Beach Blanket Babylon when I worked there in the early 90s. And him and Alan Greenspan, not The Economist, the maker of all the giant hats and dresses for Beach Blanket Babylon. There was a hat that was the shape of San Francisco with all the buildings on it. Yeah, Val Diamond wore some unbelievable things in that show. Anyway, buckram is a hat maker and wig maker's like a space filler. So it's a lightweight white mesh. It looks like screen. When you get it warm, it, like any thermoplastic, it can be molded into a shape that when it cools, it holds that shape really well. Hot glue will hold to it and grab it forever. So that, I think that kind of thermal mesh that you can sculpt its shape is probably your best bet. It can be difficult to work out a transition when you have an internal structure and you're adding it to cloth. So you might have to consider layered materials for the coat that you want to make. Because if you only make buckram into a curve at the bottom of your cloak, then it's going to cantilever against where it meets the cloak and you'll start to see this hinging. And if you want to hide that, you could hide that with layers of felt, maybe Super 77 together. I did some work like this when I did, when Daryl Maloney and I did the Knights of Ren for Silicon a few years back. And I was working with some heavy felts in order to get the weight and the gesture that I wanted. And it turned out they had to be heavier than I really thought when I first started making that costume. Hat makers use some interesting materials, especially because hats have to remain quite lightweight. And, you know, just like I love going to a Joann's Beauty Supply to go see what new tweezers might await my perusal, I love looking at any other industry for the interesting shortcuts that they have. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects,
questions. You get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.